here we go. Today, I'm going to talk about video games. So just honestly, right off the bat, if you don't care about video games, if you are not familiar with the video games industry, this is going to be rather boring and you're not going to know what I'm talking about. So this is your out. If that just really does not interest you, that's basically the whole pod. So get out while you can if you're not interested. But for those that are interested, I'm interested. I enjoy playing video games and I want to start talking about them more. Maybe I'll start a different platform to talk on them, or maybe I'll just do it right here, whatever. Okay, so I guess I had kind of fallen off video games until about 2018. And then I got a Nintendo Switch, and we had consoles, and I had, a Game Boy, and we had a Wii and stuff. But then I think once I moved out when I was 18 and then was going to school and hanging out with friends, I felt fallen off. But yeah, in 2018, I got a Switch, and that really kind of got me back in to the industry. And then I got a PS4, and then last Christmas I bought myself an Xbox Series S. So it's not like the top quality, top tiered gaming setup. I don't have a PC. I would love to get a Steam Deck. A Steam Deck sounds fun. Again, I might just be talking gibberish to people, but whatever. You can listen to something else. So I want to talk about my top games, my favorite games of 2022. I was kind of writing down my top played games a few days ago just to kind of get ready for this podcast. And I was just looking back and I was like, yeah, I guess I actually did play a lot of video games this year, and more so this year than other years. I've definitely gotten way back into it. I'm wondering if it's too much into it, because I don't know why, but I'm gravitating towards video games. I don't know if that's like a stress response or a stress reliever. Maybe since having a kid, and I'm more of a homebody. I don't really know exactly why, but for sure this year, I don't know if it's the most I've ever played, but it's the most I've cared and intentionally played. Anyway, so I'm just going to start off. I guess I'll try to go chronologically. So again, I'm going over my top, my favorite games. I don't know how many there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, roughly 10. That's a clean number too. Top 10 games of 2022. It's going to be an epic thumbnail on YouTube. Just kidding. I'm not going to stoop that low. Okay. So I started off, let's see, in January. Okay. There was the sound. I don't know. Okay. There's also a battle in my head over how video games come across to people. So I think there's one side of the equation of, yeah, video games are fun. It's entertainment. It provides you, I guess it literally just provides entertainment. That's the value there. And then there's the other side that's like video games are a complete waste of time. They provide no utility. They just suck up your brain capacity for X amount of hours. And I don't know where I fall on that. I think to a certain level, they can be a waste of time. But I'm also really enjoying that time that I'm intentionally giving to play these games. And what else? Okay, so I guess it's the opportunity cost equation of just, okay, what other, of course, I could be doing a lot of other things. But what would I actually be doing? I could do a lot of things, but what would I do? And then is it okay to just have one thing that's just pure, hey, you know what? I enjoy this. And yeah, it takes up time, but who cares? I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of over the guilt part of it, of like feeling guilty for. And okay, so also, I don't think I actually played that much, especially compared to like other people that I talk to or listen to. I actually calculated the amount of hours, and I guess depending on who you ask, they would probably tell you if it's a lot of time or not, but I'll save that for later on in the podcast. So yeah, I don't think that video games are a waste of time. They can be. Of course, a person could sit on their ass all day, eating, fast food and playing Call of Duty online multiplayer for 8 hours straight, staying up super late. I don't do that, right? Like my circadian rhythm wouldn't even allow me to stay up late. Like once 8 o'clock hits, I'm done. Like even if I want to stay up late and play video games or do anything else, once 8 o'clock hits, 8 p.m., my body's like, yo, in bed right now because you got to wake up at 4:45 in the morning. Because I wake up this morning I woke up at 4, but I wake up between 4 and 5 every single morning. Sometimes on my days off, I'll sleep in till like 6, but that's a rare occasion. It's typically every morning I'm up between 4 and 5. So yeah, video games are sort of the one thing in my life where I'm okay right now. I mean, of course, we all have seasons of life, and I think this is just the season I'm in of just like, dang, this is great. This is just like really lifting my spirits, providing me with like engaging stories and, small bite-sized problem solving puzzles and stuff like that it's like, this is great. Like I don't see any issue with this. So that's my disclaimer for myself. All right. So I'm going to start off. So I started off the year playing Pokemon Legends Arceus. And I'm just going to say right off the bat, this was not my favorite game. I gave it a 6 out of 10. It was, I do not enjoy Pokemon games. I'm just going to say that right off the bat. This one had a little bit of hype behind it. And so I was like, you know what? I'll throw it a bone. I'll try it out. And I played it for about 20 hours. And so I feel like people that don't play video games hear, oh my God, 20 hours. That's a long time. But I guess in the context of the video game world, 20 hours, that's a good amount of time. That really is. But some people can drop over 100 hours on these games. So I played it for 20, and then I hit a wall, and I was like, I'm not going to finish this game. And there were certain aspects that were fun, which, explains the 20 hours. Like, I'm not going to just completely waste my life doing something I don't enjoy. So I obviously had some fun playing it, but I think at a certain point, hit a wall, and you have you have a clearer perspective on. This is going to sound so stupid, but you have a clearer perspective on video games after you're done playing them. So in the moment, I was really enjoying it, but afterwards, I was like, that was actually not. That was like very mid tier game. So I gave it a 6 out of 10. So that did not really make my top games of 2022, but it was just a game that I put a decent amount of time in, so I wanted to throw it in. So that was in January, and then February came the big Elden Ring. And so for people that don't know what Elden Ring is, so it actually got Game of the Year a few weeks ago. There's this annual game awards show called the Game Awards, and this got the Game of the Year. And so what Elden Ring is it's an open world RPG made by the developer From Software, and it's technically classified as a Soulsborne or a Souls-like game, but in the open world. Again, for people that don't know what that means, it's just like the genre that the developer they've like made a name for themselves doing this type of game. And so this was taking that genre and making it an open world. And it really, really hit for a lot of people. And I was really excited about this game, and I got it at launch. And it was really interesting. It's a very, 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 very difficult game. And it's all, not all, but it's very heavily emphasized on very difficult boss battles. And I am more on the casual side of, playing games. I like more story driven or puzzle solving games. Grinding and getting my butt kicked and dying over and over again from this one boss battle that you have to like find the rhythm and learn and study, and that's just not really my style. That's not what I really enjoy, but a lot of people really do. And so there were comparisons to this game to Breath of the Wild, which came out in 2017, which is it's a Zelda game, a Nintendo Zelda game. And that's my favorite game of all time is Zelda Breath of the Wild, which is a very, I guess, stereotypical favorite game of all time. Like there's many websites and gaming industry companies and that classify that game as the best game of all time. Not everybody, but a lot of people. So that's my favorite game of all time. And there's a lot of comparisons to this game being similar to Breath of the Wild, but just very difficult. And I can definitely see that. But I think I really enjoyed a lot of aspects of Elden Ring. And there was other, like the story. So I guess what's his name? J.R.R. Martin. I think that's his name. He's the guy that did Game of Thrones is based off a book that J.R.R. Martin wrote. I think that was him, but I could be wrong. But he was not heavily involved, but I think he was a part of the story building and the world building and the lore, like creating aspect of the game. And so that was really cool. Anyway, all this to say, I liked Elden Ring. I did not love Elden Ring. I played it for about, I played it for about 40 hours total. And I'll still actually pop in every once in a while. Like maybe a couple weeks ago, I got back into it for like a couple hours. But it's not clicking 100%. There's so much that I really like and admire and respect about this game. I just don't have, I guess, the willpower to give so much time to studying this game. Like this game is a homework assignment. And I'm like, my game playing increments are so small these days, just with the kid and with, my bedtime, and I don't have that much time. And so I want to really just get the most out of the time I do have. And it's really disheartening for me to spend 30 minutes on that game and then die over and over and over again and be at the exact same place that I was when I started playing that session. It's just, sometimes it's really satisfying and gratifying, if that's the right use for that word. But yeah, there's so much good about it, but I wish I liked it more, but it's just not 100% clicking. So I gave it a 9 out of 10 because I really do like admire and respect and can appreciate so much of that game. Even though I didn't even finish it, I'm probably, I would say I'm most of the way through, and I'll finish it at some point in my life, but I can't do that right now. But I gave it a 9 out of 10 for the time I did spend in it. It was cool. Okay, on to the next game. So oh man. Okay, so the next game is Kirby. Kirby and the Forgotten Land. So this is the first 3D Kirby game ever. Kirby is a Nintendo franchise, I believe. And this was a really, really solid, polished, short experience. I played it for about 15 hours, finished it, thoroughly enjoyed it. And this is actually a game that I'm really excited to play with Aesop at some point in the future, or any of my kids, because it's a little bit on the easier side, and you can do co-op, so you can have two people playing it at once, and it's definitely a kid-friendly game. There's very difficult aspects of it, especially towards the end of the game, but it is one where you can make it a little bit easier, and then kids can also enjoy it. It was a very linear game that had open-ish elements to it, but it was sort of like a 3D platformer. Nintendo games are great because it's kind of all, I guess the foundation of a lot of Nintendo games is puzzle solving and platforming and finding collectibles and finding shortcuts and looking at every single nook and cranny. And it's just such a tight and polished piece of art that it's just really fun soaking it all up. So yeah, I gave that one a 9 out of 10. Super solid game. Really looking forward to playing that with the kids if they want to play that with me at some point. Okay, and then next is a game called Xenoblade Chronicles 3. So I'm kind of up in the air about this one. So out of all the games I've played this year, I spent the most time playing Xenoblade Chronicles. So I played it for 59 hours. So basically 60 hours, which is that's a time sink. Like, that's a lot of time. And again, it's a story driven JRPG, which is a Japanese role-playing game. And yeah, the story was actually good. But But I think after I finished it, I was just like, yeah, that was good. That was good. So I gave it a solid 8 out of 10. Just because there's some technical issues and there's some flaws that I didn't quite appreciate. I guess it just wasn't as well made as other games, and there was a lot of, yeah, again, just like kind of technical and graphical issues that were kind of holding it back for me. But the story was really good, and I'm glad I played it. If I could do it again, I would probably try to just streamline it and just play the story and get through it in maybe not half the amount of time, but maybe I could have shaved off like 15 or 20 hours and I would have been totally fine, you know? So yeah, solid 8 out of 10, Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Okay, and then I didn't actually play this one for very long. It's Portal. It's like I think it's called a companion collection, but it basically is just Portal 1 and Portal 2 bundled together. So Steam just dropped that on the Switch this year. And Portal is, man, for people that don't play video games, Portal should be the first video game you ever play. It's so crazy. So you basically have two portal guns, and you can shoot a blue portal and an orange portal. And so you can shoot portals that open up, and then you can walk through them, and then of course you'll come out the other portal. And so it's just, you're kind of thrown into these very small rooms and arena type things, and you really just have to figure out how to get out of the room, or how to get from point A to point B. But you have to basically do these like dimension travels in order to get there. You could like watch a trailer on it, and just the physics and the way it's all comes together. It's just such a fun, crazy experience that, again, if you're not into video games but kind of curious, that should be your go-to. Okay, so I gave that a 9 out of 10. I only played it for a handful of hours, but I played that game with my little brother Josh growing up. We played Portal 2 together. And so I was just kind of messing around with it. I didn't actually complete it or anything this time around, but solid experience. 9 out of 10. Highly recommend. Okay, for my next game that I played, I think this is chronological, but it could not be. It's mostly chronological. Okay, this game is called Cult of the Lamb. And so Cult of the Lamb is a game where you play as a lamb and you're a cult leader. It sounds stupid on paper, but it had a lot of familiar elements. Like another favorite game of mine is Stardew Valley. Stardew Valley is, I think it's I already said Zelda's my favorite game of all time. Zelda I guess Breath of the Wild and Stardew Valley are my top two. They're tied for first. They're the top two video games of all time. But I've spent the most time in Stardew Valley. I've probably combined over like different save files and platforms, played that game for close to 300 hours. Man, yeah. Stardew Valley is kind of like a farming. It sounds so generic to call it a farming sim, but I guess if you had to quickly explain it to somebody, it's a farming and community sim. Anyway, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about Cult of the Lamb. There's a lot of elements of Stardew Valley in Cult of the Lamb with these kind of Animal Crossing type characters. So it looks super, I guess adorable is the only word that could explain it properly, but I don't really want to use that word. It looks very cutesy, but it's a very dark game. Like the plot of the game is so dark and you do some like pretty messed up stuff, but the way it's like designed is like so cute that it's like, it's just sort of like this interesting juxtaposition. Anyway, I played that game. I finished it, played it in about 15 to 20 hours, and solid 9 out of 10. I really enjoyed that game. Okay, next is Mario plus Rabbids. So I actually didn't finish this game because God of War came out. But I'll finish it. It's sort of been put on the back burner a little bit, but good experience. I would say 8 out of 10 for that one. Just with the 15 to 20 hours that I put into it. And yeah, just another, kind of solid. It's actually not a Nintendo game. It's a Ubisoft game using Nintendo IP. But I would say it doesn't, it's attached to Nintendo quality, but it doesn't actually hit that level of polish. But still a good, really good game. So 8 out of 10 for that one. And then God of War comes in. I think it came out this last November. And I'm really having to sit with this one to see where it falls in my list of favorite games. I'm feeling like it's definitely top 5 games for me, just of all time. It's good. I really enjoy it. I'm wondering if it's higher than that, but I think for sure top 5. I guess time will tell, right? It's still a little too close to call. But this game is a solid. I mean, this is a 10 out of 10 game for me. I put about 45 hours in and enjoyed literally every second of it, every minute. From start to finish. It's just the top tier flagship video game made by Santa Monica Studios. It's a sequel, actually, to God of War 2018, and it's just following the events of that game. I believe it takes place 3 years after that game. And so what God of War is so in the first era, there's been a lot of God of War games, but they kind of redid and revamped the series in 2018, and they just called it God of War. But there's a lot of God of War games before that, but the 2018 one, they just completely rebuilt it from the ground up and just changed everything about it. And so that game was about Kratos and his son Atreus. And so Atreus's mom, Faye, died previous to that game. I guess just right before. Like the game starts with her, them like burning her and collecting her ashes. And then they find, I think it was a note or something, but I guess her last wish was that they take her ashes to the tallest peak in all the 9 realms. And so the story, it's a very, I guess at a high level, it's a very simple story. Like broadly speaking, from a bird's eye view, it's just them. Basically, the whole game is them traversing to the highest point in all the 9 realms to spread Atreus' mother's ashes. So the game takes place in this Norse mythological world. And so Kratos is a god and he's like 1,000 years old. And Atreus is, I think he's like 11 in that game. But at the end of the game, he finds out that he's part, half god and half giant. And then I guess there's like prophecy that he's supposed to be, or he's this character named Loki. And then so this new God of War game that just came out, God of War Ragnarok, is him trying to, I guess, figure out who he's supposed to be. And it's more about like prophecy and discovering yourself and coming of age and maturing into what and who you're supposed to be. But yeah, and then so this game, it takes place during like Fimbulwinter, and Ragnarok is coming, which is supposed to be like the collapse of all the 9 realms that they're in. And so you're just kind of, it's very hard to explain the story of this game because it kind of goes all over the place, but I'm not even going to try to explain it. It's just, it takes place in these 9 Norse mythological realms, and all of them are just impeccably beautiful, and the fine detail. And then there's like the combat, which is very satisfying. So this was another Game of the Year contender at the Game Awards. It was sort of between this game and Elden Ring for Game of the Year. And of course, I mean, it's all subjective, right? Anybody can give a game award to, or like a Game of the Year award to any game they want. But for me, this was my Game of the Year for sure. God of War Ragnarok, favorite game of 2022. Even though Elden Ring won Game of the Year, according to the Game Awards, but I totally respect that decision. Like, I think I can appreciate and know that, I mean, they're very, very, very different games for different audiences. And I personally resonated with God of War more, but I can also understand that Elden Ring did a lot of pretty cool, kind of revolutionary things. And so I can definitely respect that that game getting the Game of the Year. But for me, yeah, God of War just clicked a little bit more. Okay, so that was basically my whole year. I guess, okay, so over the past couple weeks, I've been playing, this game didn't come out this year, but I've been playing Cyberpunk 2077. I'm very late on this game. Like, I kind of slept on it, but I'm actually really glad that I slept on it because this game has had a lot of controversy, and there's just been a lot of issues with this game, a lot of bugs, a lot of game-breaking bugs. There's been a lot of patches, and so it's 2 years old at this point. It came out in 2020, and I got it initially on the PS4, and it was so bad that the PS4 was actually issuing refunds for this game just because it was not performing well and crashing, and it was unfinished. And so I bought it, played it for a few hours, and then returned it. And I've kept my eye on it though, and just recently I mean, they've come out with a lot of patches over the years and stuff. But just recently, there was a patch for my Xbox Series S, which added 60 frames, 60 frames per second, which just makes the game a lot smoother. And then I've just been watching a lot of stuff about how there's actually a really great game here that kind of got muddied by its poor release. Because that's all anybody would talk about when it first came out, was just like, this game is unplayable because it's so buggy and it's crashing, and it's just like it needed more time in the brewer. But now that the game is 2 years old and it's had a lot of patches, and the publisher or the developer, CD Projekt Red, they've made games like The Witcher, and they're still, I mean, they just patched, or not patched, but put out a next gen version of that game like a couple weeks ago, and that game is 7 years old. So they're very committed. It seems they're very committed to their games, and they'll keep up with them, and they'll release new content, and they'll fix them, and they'll stay engaged with them. They're not just going to put a game out and then just focus on the next game. They're going to continue to craft. I mean, hopefully, right? Anyway, I decided to get into this game in December of 2022, 2 years after it released. But I'm actually really, really enjoying it. It's solid. I also watched Cyberpunk Edge Runners, which is a Netflix series. I probably don't recommend to people, but I was kind of indifferent towards it. But anyway, I'm about 10 to 15 hours into Cyberpunk and really liking it. So far, giving it a 9 out of 10. Okay, so of all the hours, of all the games that I've played, I roughly calculated all the hours and totaled them up. And that total is 237 hours, roughly, that I've played video games this year, which is a lot. Yeah, that's a lot of hours. That's a lot of time to spend on, well, it's not just one thing, because it's many different things, but I guess it is kind of one thing at the same time too. Yeah, I was kind of thinking, okay, what could be done in 237 hours? I know that I have 237 hours worth of wiggle room in my year that I could exchange to do other things. I could focus on other things. I mean, I've also done a lot of other things this year. I started up a podcast with my old pal at the beginning of the year. Did that for 6 months. That fell through. Started my own. I've also been focusing on the business, on the Stamina Coffee, and getting that going, and learning how to roast. And I've also been working a full-time job, and I've been a full-time parent, and being a dad to Aesop, and focusing on my health, and so many other things. And so, yeah, I've put 240 hours into video games. And you know what? I'm kind of okay with that. I don't mind. I honestly really do get a lot of joy out of playing games. And I'm actually really looking forward to, I mean, there's a lot of toxic aspects about the gaming industry. Like, don't get me wrong. But there's also a lot of really cool and good aspects and things to enjoy. And so it's sort of just lumping the entire gaming industry into one category of just like gamers is, it's probably a little bit more out of date now, maybe in like the early 2000s and 2010s, but maybe not. But I feel like these days it's such a massive industry with games coming out every day. I mean, or at least really high quality games coming out on a weekly basis, that you can't just lump the entire industry into one category, because there's just so many different works of arts and game directions, and it's cool. It's cool to just consume. But whatever. That's the world we live in, and I think there's worse things to consume. So yeah, that's my top games, video games specifically, of 2022. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you skipped it because you don't play video games, then that's cool too. But I might start talking about video games more. I'm not gonna lie. Whether that's on this platform or if I start a new platform, who knows? But I don't know. There's, again, kind of like I was saying earlier, there's sort of like this gravitational pull that I'm not really trying to resist. Yeah, okay. So yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Okay, let's see here. Today is 22nd. So Christmas is in like 3 days. I got my little brother coming into town, so that'll be good. I'm going to try to get him on the pod. I'll have to do a little bit of convincing, but I really want to talk to him. All right. I think that's all I have to say. Our baby's due in, I have more to say apparently, but our baby is due in like 3 weeks. So I'm gonna try to continue doing this podcast. I don't know what that's gonna logistically look like. We'll see if I have the allowance, first of all, but the capacity to do so. I'm going to try to make it happen. All right, everybody. Have a great day or evening or night. Eat some good, healthy food. Get some sunlight. Don't stress out too much. Do something you enjoy. I'm also not feeling great today, so maybe I'm a little congested. All right. Goodbye, everyone.